Recording stopped.
Hi, Nhlanhla. Just checking what's i-grand namnganam.
Wait, it's fine, Sister Alpin. Ndicela undenze co-host.
Okay, I'll do that, my dear.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
Good morning, all guests on the platform. If I can please ask that we sign in with our names and surnames, and maybe in brackets, if you can, put the organization name so that we can be able to record for registration purposes. For example, Kaye's iPad, can I please get your name and the organization? Thank you.
Kayelisha Mazala.
Oh, Mr.
MK
Mazala,
Parts.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mazala.
MKP. Okay.
Colleagues, good morning. Good morning to the honorable members.
Morning.
Morning, Chair.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. May we then start with our meeting. Our agenda, I hope that you have it in your gadget, but may I request if, Albertina, you are able to place it on the screen. Okay, thank you very much. So let's declare our meeting open by welcoming you, colleagues, all of you, the department. I can see yes, I can see TTGs here. So we will start immediately. Our agenda is as it appears there. We are going to get the update by the department on the status of foot and mouth disease and intervention measures to control the spread thereof. And then we'll have discussions, and later on it will be, the department will be released, and colleagues and honorable members will then discuss the last part of the agenda. May we go then to the apologies. Albi, do we have any apologies?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson and members and
Yes.
colleagues. Chair, we've got the apology from ODM Chapa is not feeling well, as well as DG Ramasodi is also not feeling well, Chair. So DDG Sarache is the one who's going to lead the delegation. Thank you very much, Chair. That's all from my side, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for those apologies, colleagues. Is there anyone who would like to present an apology? No, we seem to be fine then. Thank you very much. The apologies will be noted as such. We'll then go straight to the presentation. DDG Sarache, you are welcome with your team. I would like to give you an opportunity now to lead your team and make the presentation. You're on the floor. Yes.
My apology, Chair. I see who Minister is on the platform, Chair. I just look at that now.
Oh, is the minister on the platform?
Yes,
Oh,
Chair.
yes. Minister, good morning. I didn't see that you are here. My apologies. A very good morning to you, Minister. Let me hand over to you, Minister, to lead your team.
Good morning to you, Chairperson, and good morning to the members of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. We'll be presenting the status update on foot and mouth, which is obviously a very serious concern for South Africa, and why we've initiated a variety of measures to try and get on top of it. But it is going to require a whole of government approach to try and resolve the matter, because we do need cooperation from provinces, from provincial traffic departments, as well as the SAPS, and there's ongoing interactions with them. But it is obviously essential that we do get on top of foot and mouth, because it is the single biggest loss of opportunity for us, I believe, in the agriculture space, from access to particularly lucrative markets like the European Union. I'm very glad DDG Sarache is on here. DDG Sarache will be taking point on the latest outbreaks, which I'm sure you'll be hearing about this morning, and outlined the initiatives that we have been discussing over the course of the last week to put in place to get on top of it. I'm sure the words that DDG Sarache will use will be, we can't do business as usual. We need to do something different, and I have no doubt that he will outline what those are. But we do require this to be a whole of society and a whole of government approach for us to get onto it. It's obviously very difficult. We have some auctioneers and some speculators who just simply refuse to pay by the rules and have put the industry at significant risk. And obviously, we need to take a far stronger line against them. And to that effect, investigations are ongoing into 2 auctions that we believe have the potential to have caused some of the problems that we're now having to go and clean up. But with that, Chairperson, I'll hand over to DDG Sarache, who will be the point person on this particular matter. And thanks for the opportunity to be with you again this morning.
Thank you very much, Minister. Our appreciation that you're here. DDG Sarache, let me hand over to you.
Thank you very much to my Minister, and thank you very much to you, Honorable Chairperson, and members of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We've structured it such that I will have the Chief Veterinary Officer, Dr. Mlisani, to take us through, with your indulgence, Minister and members of the PC, about the background up to where we are, and then I'll take the last 2 slides on the way forward, what's going to be done going forward. With your indulgence, if we can have Dr. Mlisani taking us the background, we've prepared it such that it starts from as far back as possible to give a comprehensive picture of where we are, and so that when by the time I get to the last 2 slides with regards to the way forward, the picture would be much clearer. With your indulgence, Chairperson, Dr. Mlisani.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to all the members of the committee, Minister, and DDG colleagues on the platform. I will ask Anastasia or the Secretariat to please project the presentation for us.
Albertina, assist with your team.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Oh, Anna, you are a co-host. Now you can share the presentation.
Okay.
The reason why, Chairperson, I'm asking that it be projected is to avoid a situation where maybe I will be projecting the one that you don't have, because I know that the one that she'll be projecting is the one that you'll be having. Thank you very much. As indicated, we wish to update the portfolio committee.
There you are.
Yeah, we wish to update the portfolio committee on the status of the foot and mouth disease outbreaks, and then also the control measures that we are employing to avoid the spread of the disease to other provinces. Next slide. The outline of our presentation has the history, and then I will be looking at the FMD outbreak since 2021 up to 2025. We'll also put a little bit of the status quo before 2019, Chairperson. And then we'll take the outbreaks per province just to indicate on the progress and the regress that may have happened, and also indicate the challenges, and then the control strategies, and then the challenges. And then Mr. Sarache has indicated that he will take the last 2 slides on the way forward. Next slide. A brief history on FMD outbreaks is that before 2019, South Africa had a freedom status for foot and mouth disease. We had actually regionalized foot and mouth disease with only areas very close to the Kruger National Park that were regarded as high risk that we were vaccinating in, and a little portion just on the northern side of KwaZulu-Natal. But in 2019, we had an outbreak in Limpopo, and then that resulted in the loss of the free status that South Africa had before. In 2021, however, we had an outbreak in KwaZulu-Natal. This outbreak is still continuing. But in 2022, we also had a multi-province outbreak involving 5 provinces, Northwest, Free State, Gauteng, and Mpumalanga. The last cases in these provinces were reported in 2022. But I must emphasize that these provinces were in a position to resolve the outbreaks and then also manage to resolve the outbreak with the World Organization for Animal Health. Members will know that we had a huge outbreak of foot and mouth disease in the Eastern Cape, involving mainly the dairy industry. But the Eastern Cape has done a sterling job in terms of controlling this disease. And then we are in the processes of closing the outbreaks. However, in 2024, last year, up to this year, we've been having new outbreaks in KwaZulu-Natal. Majority of the time in the past, the outbreaks were mainly in the eastern side of Zululand to a very large extent. But unfortunately, we have been having a little spread or a major spread towards the west, with the latest outbreaks being in the Tugela area, and resulting from the outbreak, the auction in Utrecht, that ultimately resulted in the spread to Mpumalanga province. And we also have now an outbreak in Gauteng. I will come back to these two in the next slide. Next slide, please. This map, honorable members, is depicting the control zones. As you can see in the map, on the eastern side of Limpopo and north, a little bit on the north, and then also on eastern side of Mpumalanga, we do have the red zone, which is basically the infected zone. Buffaloes are the main culprits of carrying the disease and harboring it on our honorable members. And there are a lot of buffaloes in the Kruger National Park that every now and then egresses from the Kruger National Park and gets into the yellow area, which is normally the protection zone and the high surveillance zone, wherein we do not expect to see disease, but we also, to a very large extent, try to control the disease from going deep into the country. The black dots that you see on the map are actually outbreaks that have happened in the past that we ultimately resolved. But we can see a little bit of the red on the northern side of KwaZulu-Natal, which is basically one of the control zones. But we can also see the red dots in the eastern side of KwaZulu-Natal, in the northern part, where the outbreaks have been happening since 2021. And we can see little dots going towards the west, wherein we've been receiving, getting new reports. And then right at the bottom in the Eastern Cape, the triangles there are actually the foot and mouth disease outbreaks that have happened in the Eastern Cape that are indicated have been controlled up to so far. Next slide. So if I am to summarize the outbreaks per province, outbreaks in KwaZulu-Natal have been simmering since 2021, but to a very large extent until late last year, we have managed to contain the outbreaks in KwaZulu-Natal until the disease started moving towards the west, particularly this year. And we are aware of the fact that the auctions have been playing a major role in terms of spreading the disease, particularly this auction in Utrecht that seemed to have played a significant role in terms of spreading the disease towards the west. But when we noticed that that auction had taken place in February and there was disease, we started doing trace forwards for the animals that were sold from that auction, and we followed up some as far as Mpumalanga. There were some animals that were sent to other areas that we followed up. And then this one in Mpumalanga, we found that infection has taken place in the farm in the southern side of Mpumalanga. Just as we were confirming this outbreak last week in Mpumalanga, we also got requests to allow that some samples be tested because animals were brought in reportedly from Heidelberg auction, and they were showing clinical signs in the Mohale city in Gauteng. We gave permission that the samples be tested, and then they came back positive. But I must indicate, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Minister, that Gauteng has been very busy throughout the weekend after confirmation to do trace forwards and so on. But the conclusion that they arrived at is that this Heidelberg auction is not the culprit, is not the one that has caused this outbreak in Gauteng, because we have followed up on majority of the animals that came from that auction, and there was none that were positive. There were none that were positive. And then we will be following up on the history to find out where actually this FMD was coming from. But today I received confirmation that this outbreak is similar to the one that happened in Berthville. The virus is similar to the one that happened in Berthville, meaning that it seems to be related to the Utrecht auction again. And next slide. I must indicate, Chairperson, honorable members, that the Northern Cape and the Western Cape provinces up to so far are the only two provinces that have not experienced outbreaks of foot and mouth disease. And I must also indicate that the Gauteng outbreak that happened in 2022, that last was reported in 2022, was ultimately resolved in March 2024. The Limpopo outbreak was also resolved in 2023. Mpumalanga was resolved in 2023 too, and Northwest was also resolved in 2024. Free State again in 2024, and we are busy resolving the Eastern Cape one. Currently in 2025, the outbreaks that we have are in KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Gauteng. I've indicated to the DDG that we are also very concerned about reports of buffaloes that have been escaping from the Kruger Park that were spotted in Vembe, and we have requested Limpopo to be on the lookout, especially in Vembe, to make sure that we catch the disease as soon as possible. I must indicate all those buffaloes, about 8 of them, were all shot and disposed of. Thank you. Next slide. The strategies that have been employed, that we are employing, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Minister, in terms of the Animal Diseases Act, foot and mouth disease is a controlled animal disease. So we do take special actions once we suspect it, or we have reported it, or we have confirmed it. I must also indicate that foot and mouth disease is a very significant, very trade-sensitive disease. It does affect export markets significantly, and some countries may even take protective measures against other commodities. I am informed, we haven't confirmed, that even commodities like amarula are now being affected by the occurrence of foot and mouth in South Africa. Australia may be coming up with restrictions on this product, but we will be confirming that. Once we have suspicions of the disease, or we have confirmed a location or a farm to be infected, we place that farm under quarantine. We perform clinical examinations. We collect blood and conduct further testing. We also collect other samples that may assist us in terms of confirming the disease. Minister always, once a location is big and there is need for control of movement, Minister will declare a disease management area, like we currently have in the Eastern Cape, a disease management area. It's normally gazetted, and then also in KwaZulu-Natal. The aim of the declaration of the disease management area is to control the movement, which is very effective in terms of reducing the spread of the disease. We also do vaccinations in affected heads, and the main aim is to decrease viral load and shedding of the virus. I must indicate that once we have vaccinated these animals, often we place an F on the neck of the animal. That is a brand mark. We put an F brand on the neck because the brand mark is not easily erased. But it is very important to also say that for the control of foot and mouth disease and other diseases, it's very significant to have the animals properly identified to be in a position to control movements. As I indicated earlier, in the yellow colored area in the map, we do preemptive vaccination because it is a high-risk area. And then should there also be concern related to a farm, which is not necessarily in the control zone, that is of high risk, we can also do preemptive vaccination if the minister and the director agrees. Often, if the feedlots are affected, Chairperson, honorable members, we also do what we call controlled slaughter to make sure that we dispose of all the animals that may be harboring the disease that may, in the end, confuse with the diagnosis, and then also that may probably inadvertently cause the spread of the disease. And then when we do controlled slaughter, we make sure that high-risk materials are disposed of correctly. And we only utilize designated abattoirs. And then for breeding heads, often, especially if they have been vaccinated, we monitor especially the progeny, and then make sure that only animals that are testing positive, that are negative from those heads, are being sold and are being utilized in facilities like dairy farms and so on. Next slide. There are challenges associated with our experiences of foot and mouth disease outbreaks nowadays. We believe that the virus is changing its behavior. We are no longer, in some cases, seeing classical symptoms of the disease. If I am to give an example, this trace forward in Mpumalanga, we up to so far have not been able to see any clinical signs of disease. We are confirming the outbreaks from the testing of the blood or the serum, but we haven't seen any symptoms. But we have got reason to believe that the disease has been spreading in that farm, within that farm, because the last time we tested, only the animals, the 64 animals that were mixed with the animals that were introduced, were positive. But now when we went back last week, we tested adjacent camps. We found that they have also done what we call seroconversion. The blood started testing positive. So we are not seeing clinical signs anymore. And this, to a very large extent, complicates diagnosis of the disease and early warning. The other challenge that we have been experiencing is the role that the auctions are playing, basically. And even though we have agreed with the Agricultural Produce Agency Council, Agricultural Produce Agents Council, in terms of biosecurity rules, we are still seeing animals going to the auctions and spreading the disease. So we believe that the rules are not actually being complied with. And then there are also other aspects of difficulty of controlling movements, especially in rural communities, because rural communities, most of the time, they are very dependent on the auctions to sell their animals, and they sort of move animals when there is need for cash or for money, without necessarily getting the animal health technicians to come and inspect their animals and make sure that they are not sick. Next slide. The other challenges relate to maybe non-visibility of technical people. Countrywide, we do have a very huge shortage of veterinarians that are actually servicing particularly the rural communities. Generally, in the country, there are over just about 3,000 registered veterinarians, but we only have about less than 300 working for the state, and that creates a little challenge in terms of availability of veterinarians. We still don't have an individual animal identification and traceability in the country, which really creates a huge challenge in terms of being able to trace back the animals or identify them when they are being sold. Generally, we knew that animals that are wearing a pink tag or green tag are not supposed to be sold at ordinary auctions, but tags can be easily removed if animals are going to auctions. That is why for vaccinated animals, basically put an F brand on the neck, because we also check for that if you go to the auctions. As I indicated earlier, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Minister, South Africa, we do have a permanent risk in terms of buffaloes in the Kruger National Park, and of course now the other game reserves. If we have infected buffaloes, once there is an escape of a buffalo and a mixture of this buffalo with the animals, there is a risk of transferring the disease to especially cattle, goats and sheep and pigs, cloven-hoofed animals can all be infected and may spread the disease. I think next slide. The next slide is the one that Mr. Srache DDG is going to be taking over. And Chairperson, if you allow, Minister, I give over to Mr. Srache.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. DDG.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murisan, and thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and the members. So far, all the measures that we have been unleashing as a response to an outbreak of foot and mouth disease are proving not to be effective. We have tried everything, and this is what we've been doing all the years, and we've reached a stage where we are just not going to continue to do things the way we've always done them and ending up here. Honourable members, we've started a process which is not going to be a usual process, and some of your constituencies might come to you and to ask for intervention because at some point trade is going to be affected in order for us to get this matter addressed adequately so that we can move forward. We know now that FMD spreads by two main vectors. So viruses are transmittable or are transmitted by what we call vectors. Vector meaning a person or any other object that moves from contaminated to uncontaminated. This, in the main, we have checked now, are vehicles that are used to transport animals from auctions. And auctions also are also one of the big culprits to date. We do not see outbreaks happening mainly in the communal areas. This confirms that the problem is with the auctioneers. We've lined up a series of meetings for consultation. One will obviously be with the provincial departments of agriculture, so that we can, every province and in every part of the country can be receptive to the measures that we're going to take. Dr. Mlisana mentioned the APEC, which is basically the entity that reports to Minister Steenhuisen as one of the entities that reports to him. And this APEC is established basically in the main to run, amongst other things, auctions. And basically it's about the agricultural produce agents. We're going to meet with them, and we're going to also meet with the auctioneers. And so before we implement the steps, so we're going to engage them and consult with them so that we afford them an opportunity to understand, one, and secondly, to make inputs before we start with a series of steps that we're going to start to unleash. We are also aware that people sell animals because to make a living out of livestock. Dr. Mlisana spoke of the lack of the individual animal identification system. We've got the regulations, draft regulations ready now, which Minister has since signed. So we'll have those. Those are being consulted, the regulations. As soon as they are consulted, the regulations will be in place. And one thing that I can outrightly mention to ministers, to members of this PC to already be aware of, so that if questions are asked, members are able to already understand where they come from, is with regard to all animals that are to be sold at auctions have got to be individually identified. So this would then mean anybody who owns a livestock and animal, in this specific case, cattle, sheep, goats, and in this specifically now talking about cattle, they will have to have them individually identified. The current practice in South Africa that is common is brand mark. Brand mark is not identifying the animal. The brand mark is identifying the owner of the animal. So that's why you would have a herd of 1,000 cattle would have the same brand mark, because that is identifying the owner, not the animal. Additional to the brand mark, we are going to add individual animal ID, so that most similar like our identity numbers, so that anywhere in the country, anywhere, wherever animals move or animal exchange hands, whether they are used to pay lobola or anything else, they will have to be individually identified. And if they are not identified, they will not be accepted at an auction. But we also realize that out of the livestock business being, with the economy in the country being the way it is, we realize that people or farmers in the areas that we are prone to foot and mouth diseases, they tend to sell animals outside the protection zones. This is because, as state, we have not invested adequately in the form of abattoirs in those areas. So the next step that we're going to be doing is going to be to ensure that we've already identified areas, and the areas around Palabora and Mpumalanga, KZN, where we're going to have to establish new abattoirs wherein FMD positive animals are going to be slaughtered there, and under the care and supervision of our veterinary services, to ensure that the risky parts or the cuts that should not be are considered risk are not going to be processed into meat, but the rest of the meat would be sold. So we're going to have to, that's the first step, one of the steps that we're going to do. But let me come to what we know is going to challenge, to be an interim challenge, is that Minister has the right, in terms of Section 9 of the Animal Diseases Act, to issue a directive as pursuant to control of animal disease. In this specific, this we have not unleashed over the years, because it's to some degree it's going to be disruptive to business. And unless we do this, we're not going to win the battle against foot and mouth disease. If Minister issues Section 9(1)(b), it would mean the whole country would have to adhere to directive issued to ensure that all animals that are to be sold at an auction have got to be individually identified. but that will be after the regulations. But the directive will, once issued, will be with immediate effect. So this might be just before the time we have the regulations in place. But we're going to also ensure that I mentioned that we're going to talk to the provincial departments of agriculture. We're going to prioritize some of our allocation funding that we have to ensure that each and every auction is registered and there's an animal health technician supported by the vet in that area, but the animal health technician stationed at each and every auction to ensure that the directives that minister shall have issued are adhered to. And they are going to ensure this means additional capacity that a state we are going to need. We are aware that private sector minister always encourages us to look into PPP, private public partnership interventions. There's a lot of interest from the industry that they want to work with us and collaborate with us. We will be engaging the livestock industry as part of the series of meetings that we're going to have. And we're going to be having also meetings with the speculators. Dr. Mr. spoke of speculators. These are the people whose business is to buy livestock and sell elsewhere. They move livestock up and down. We require that for any newly purchased animals must be, stationed or quarantined in inverted commas for at least up to a month, so that in the event of them having been infected before they are purchased, we can be able to control and ensure that they do not transmit the virus to the other herd that are going to be introduced to. This is one area that upfront I can already mention to members that we're gonna have some bit of a pushback, but we've got no choice now. All these years we've been trying to unleash all the less business disturbance processes and less delays and less impact on business. But unfortunately, our steps did not work, and they are not working at the moment. So once we're done with the legal process and everything else, we hope to conclude the consultations by the end of this week. And next week, we will have the minister issuing the directive for Section 9(1)(b), and that should be adhered to and should have immediate effects. And the auctioneers, the speculators, and APEC and everybody else shall have been consulted, so it's not going to be a surprise to anyone. Long term, if you go to okay, while we're still here, we're going to have to prioritize funding, which we do not have sufficient of, to procure vaccines and have them shipped into the country. As you know now, our Agricultural Research Council is able to produce some vaccines, but albeit not in a large scale. We've started the process of ensuring that we double the capacity at the Agricultural Research Council to produce additional vaccines, so that we rely on own South African produced vaccine, no longer rely on vaccines from Botswana. But at the moment, it's a reality that we cannot escape. We only have Botswana at the moment that produces vaccines that we use. We have ramped up capacity at the Agricultural Research Council. One of the things that we will have to do is to prioritize funding from the branch, from the department, for ARC to double its capacity. We at some point gave them about 50 million rand for them to create the capacity. We're going to double that this coming financial year. So it means that's a question of robbing Peter to pay Malebo. It's going to be the story. Unfortunately, this is a critical area that we're going to have to do and rob another money from other projects to ensure that we are able, as a country, to have our own vaccine. But as part of the PPP, some farmer organizations and some farmers are coming forward and are saying they are asking us to allow them to purchase vaccine themselves. And this is a beautiful picture of a PPP. And we're going to have the first of this steps, which was never done before. We are going to allow one farmer or farming business this next week or so for them to purchase vaccines directly, but under the supervision of our veterinary services, to ensure that they don't wait on state resources which are dwindling. Those that can afford and can come forward as part of the PPP that Minister always encourages us to do, we're going to do exactly that. So it's no longer that old style of saying it can only be government that's going to produce vaccines, and it takes time for us to get around to get vaccines available. Next slide. One of the other matters that Dr. Minister touched a little bit on is that we know that FMD comes, or it's basically it is a result of us having large herds of buffaloes at Kruger National Park and Mfolozi and other private game parks that gets infected. We are told that there's about 9,000, a herd of 9,000 buffaloes and just under at Mfolozi. We are beginning to talk to, we've already started negotiations with the Department of Fishery, Forestry and Environment, and we're going to engage also the Mfolozi and SMVelo from KZN to look into two things. One will be to vaccinate the buffaloes themselves. This will require some time, and hence we register it under medium to long term. We're going to get science and research to go into it and look into preventing buffaloes from shedding the virus in the form of us. We're going to trial it and vaccinate buffaloes and see what happens. We might also have pushback here from the environmentalists. We're going to engage them and see how best we get out of that, because they might say once they are vaccinated, they're no longer wild as they should be, but we do not have much choice in this specific case. And the other structure, I said, secondly, would be to look into culling those that are some of the numbers, to reduce the number of them. Obviously, if you reduce the number, you reduce the potential of spreads. So we're going to engage with that, and with the preliminary discussions with my counterpart at the Department of Forestry, Fishery and Environment is that they are willing to assist, and also from private parks, to donate negative or healthy, or let me tell, they're all healthy because they don't show the symptoms, but FMD negative buffaloes to donate to areas where we shall have culled the buffaloes, so that we reduce the number. We're going to start with the process ASAP. It might take a bit of time because there might be some resistance, but also the resources will have to marshal resources together. But engagements, Minister will be engaging his counterpart at the DFFE, will also be engaging the provincial departments of Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and KZN for this to happen. We see this coming into not an indaba, but a meeting where all science and all political authorities and everybody else come together to agree on a way forward, because we cannot do what we've done so far, which has proven not to work. We do not have funding. Dr. Mnisan mentioned that in our allocation, we just do not have the funds to create the number of animal health technicians that we can have them all placed at the auctions. But we don't have a choice in this case. We're going to look into ways of ensuring that all auctions are manned and managed by qualified animal health technicians in a group, the group to be supervised by a veterinarian, to ensure that all the directives, section 991B and other related directives are adhered to. We will strengthen the regulations that we have already, which are not being adhered to, and we're going to enforce them. But ordinarily, regulations are not designed to be enforced. They are designed to be adhered to. Only in the event where they are not being adhered to, that enforcement comes into being. So we're going to have to enforce the regulations and ensure that no cattle movement without permission is going to be allowed in the country. I think this was the last part. Let's check, Secretary. This was the last part. These are the acronyms. Thank you so very much, members, for the opportunity. And back to you, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, DDG. We do appreciate the presentation. Minister, if you would like to come back before we take hands from the members.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. And I think that you can see now the scale of the issue that we're having to deal with and the nature of it. And clearly, as DDG Sirach has said, we can't continue to do what we've always done and expect a different result. So there is going to be some tightening up, and I think we're going to get some kickback from some who are benefiting very, very well from the more relaxed environment. And we will be tightening up. So I'm sure committee members will certainly expect calls from people in the sector who obviously will be unhappy about some of that. But the reality is, as you can see, if we don't get on top of it, it has the potential to spread even further around the country. And it requires a far harder action. Just to fill in as well with after DDG Sarache, who's done an excellent job and is now taking point on foot and mouth in the department. We've also explored with the DG, the Director General, DG Ramasodi, is liaising with the SAPS to establish what charges we could bring against those auction houses should it be found that they have violated the regulations. And I think that's going to be very important to send a very strong message out to the industry that there are rules, you have to play by the rules. And when you don't play by the rules, you actually put the whole sector at risk in a very selfish way to make a quick buck. You actually then expose the whole livestock sector in the country to risk. So we are going to want to seek out a few to make examples of, and I think that will send a very clear message out that the department is serious about these things and about getting on top of them. But I want to thank DGG Sarache and Dr. Modasani for a very comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Our appreciation, honorable members. It is your opportunity now to raise your questions if you have or your comments. I have the first hand of, I'm sorry, Honorable Mntwedi, Honorable Trollip, Honorable Mqutama. Honorable Mntwedi, you can start.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Medina Pule, and greetings to all honorable members on the platform, the Minister and the officials of Parliament and those that of the department. Chairperson, I have a number of things here to raise. The first one is that from the presentation, Dr. Modisani mentions that we lost our FMD status in 2019. Now, with the way forward that DDG dealt with, the last two slides, are you certain that we will be able to regain the FMD free zone or that FMD free status that we had lost as a country? Are you really certain, Dr. Sarache, by implementing whatever that you had on the way forward, if we are deliberate, we'll definitely regain that free FMD status that we once enjoyed before 2019? Now, the other thing that the doctor is mentioning, the other Dr. Modisani, is that there are two provinces that are FMD free, being the Northern Cape and the Western Cape. Now, I want to just check with the doctor to say, do we perhaps have an indication in terms of where in other provinces are areas where we're having big challenges with regard to the problem of FMD? So that if we're in the Northwest, we then say it's in the area of Taung or Vryburg, Khanyisa. At least we know that that is the area where the department has to focus on dealing with that. But I don't think all areas in the province would actually be affected by that. So do we have that breakdown per province that indicates on which areas are we having some of those challenges that we have mentioned? Now, the other issue that Dr. Modisani mentioned, Chair, is around the movement control, which I think we have a very serious problem in terms of controlling movement. We have very serious problem, and I know that the FMD, it's a multi-sectoral, it actually brings a multi-sectoral approach where SAPS and other relevant stakeholders will be there. But movement of animals still happens with, even where in instances where we can actually even assist on, this of stock theft and this and that, movement of animals. So my question maybe is that, how committed are other stakeholders, your SAPS, especially in particular, in terms of assisting in that aspect of controlling of a movement of animals? Now, Doctor, you mentioned something which I think we're having a very serious problem. There's a serious problem in the country with regards to extension services, where one extension officer is to almost 2,000 farmers, where ideally one extension officer should be to about 200 or so farmers. Now, we are having also shortages of veterinary services. Now, are we deliberate on fighting FMD? Why are we not employing enough veterinary services so that when we deploy them to various auctions, you don't have an auction that you'll say, we're going to deploy vets at every auction. At the end of the day, you don't have enough vets to deploy at auctions, and you end up accusing auctioneers of actually not being able to ensure that there are vets there. It is our responsibility as government to do that. So my question is that, how deliberate are we? We are not deliberate. There's no intention. If we don't have vets, if we have 300 veterinary employed by the state, it simply says there's no intention from the side of the state to fight FMD. Now, can we clearly see your intention, the minister, by getting more veterinary services on the ground for them to be able to go and assist in doing some of this work? Now, the other thing that I just want to raise is on the issue that was raised by doctors saying that tags are easily removed as certain tags indicate that this animal can be sold. How far are we in terms of implementing that individual animal identification system? Because whether you like it or not, Dr. Sarage, if that bill or whatever is passed into an act or a minister does something about it, it will not be the end of it. It means there are still communities now that still don't have, farmers don't have animal identification certificate. It was long introduced. So it doesn't mean if tomorrow we say we're going to do individual animal identification system, farmers immediately will comply with that. It would still take another 10 to 20 years. So I think that is just another thing to raise there. The other thing, Chair, is that let's talk about the ARC. The ARC has a facility that the doctor is saying they are revamping, that they are actually ramping up production there in that ARC facility. When are we going to see production ramped up at that ARC facility? Because at the moment, we can't afford to be buying vaccines from outside the country. When are we going to see ramping up that production at the level of the ARC? And the last point on my side, Chair, is that why FMD, is it not a disaster? I'm asking. If it is, why are we not declaring a disaster so that we're able to tap into the already existing disaster funds for us to be able to do more in terms of fighting the spread of the ARC within our community? So what measures, Minister, are you putting in place to make sure that extraordinarily we raise funds in order to see that we fast track that finalization of the ARC, where we're dealing with that thing area FMD facility in the ARC? Modula Stilo, ke lebogetse nako e mphileng yone mo kopanong ya gompieno. Ke lebogile.
Lebogile nna ntate. The next is Honorable Charlie.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm partly covered by the previous speaker, but I just want, when the response comes to my question for the the map with the FMD, high-risk areas, red zone, yellow zone, to be displayed. I didn't hear what the black dots were. That's my first question. And then in KZN, my concern is that there's a proliferation of the red dots in the northeastern part of KZN and going into Mpumalanga. And I'd like the department to tell us why that proliferation is happening. It might be directly related to the Hluhluwe buffalo population, but I need to understand why those red dots are growing. In the Eastern Cape, for example, it's quite easy to see that there was an outbreak in the high dairy production areas around Tsitsikama, in the Koga municipality, and then in Berlin, near East London, where there was a feedlot outbreak. So if I could just get clarity on those black dots and the growth of red dot areas. And then my concern is around livestock movement. To ask the minister whether he had appointed any committees or bodies made up of people, stakeholders in the livestock industry, because self-regulation, as I said, is one of the most important and effective ways of dealing with outbreaks. Now, if I could make two comparisons, we've been relatively successful at controlling African horse sickness outbreaks. And obviously the movement of horses, there are a lot fewer horses being moved around the country than cloven-hoofed animals. Cloven-hoofed animals are a means to a livelihood for many, many South Africans, and also we eat cloven-hoofed animals, so they get moved around a lot. So the effectiveness of control of African horse sickness outbreaks is the isolation and the disease management areas that are defined, and then all transportation of horses is monitored. Now, Chairperson, I was sitting here thinking to myself that it seems like an insurmountable task to manage movement of livestock, but there is already a whole range of pieces of legislation related to animal livestock removal certification. The owners of that livestock have got a responsibility. They need to identify the livestock as theirs. The livestock needs to be branded. We can include private veterinarians, state veterinarians to certify those certificates of animal removal certificates. But the problem with anything that is used and consumed like cloven-hoofed animals is that animals are not only moved by vehicular transportation. Animals move across areas where there is no fencing. And in communal farming areas, there's no fencing. And in cities, there's no fencing. Animals range throughout cities in South Africa without any control. And they move from, rubbish tips to suburban areas, uncontrolled. Also, stock theft is a major problem of removal of livestock without the necessary documentation. People either drive livestock across borders or out of farms and into other communities, or out of communal areas into farming communities. They get moved around at night. So there's no control. But if you can control an industry like the taxi industry, for example, and this is where the multi-sectoral disciplinary cooperation comes in. The taxi industry in South Africa is controlled by police officers and traffic officers. Taxis get stopped. The taxi driver gets asked to produce his license. They check the vehicle disc of the vehicle. They check whether they are certified to carry passengers, whether they've got TPTs, and all of those kind of things happen. So we can't expect that the agricultural community and the farming community and the auctioneering and the the livestock marketing organizations, that they can simply do their own thing, like the Agricultural Produce Agents Council. They have a responsibility, the Agricultural Produce Agents Council, to make sure that the industry is being safeguarded. So I welcome the new initiatives, and I understand that the minister and the DDG say there's going to be pushback. but there is always pushback. The art is, how do you implement new directives and new gazettes and new legislation and deal with the pushback and make the interventions effective? If you simply make laws without proper policing or intervention, those laws just become redundant and nothing changes. So we need to make sure that whatever is being done now in the short, medium, and long term to control the spread of diseases like foot and mouth disease, which is impacting negatively on our red meat industry, that whatever legislation there is, there have to be regulations that are implementable and effective to prevent the spread of animal diseases. And then I agree with my colleague who spoke before me. I think it's really embarrassing that the ARC can't produce enough vaccine and that we have to procure vaccine from Botswana. I really think that this should be one of the management criteria, that the people responsible for the ARC and Honest Report are put under pressure to provide the necessary vaccines. And I agree with Director Sarache that it's good when the private sector comes on board and says they'll procure their own vaccines. But what about poor communities that can't procure their own vaccines, that depend on the government providing them on time to ensure effective control? What happens then? I mean, for simply saying that we appreciate the private sector coming on board to fill the gap where it takes the state a long time to turn around, why can't we turn around effectively? And if the reason is that we can't produce vaccines effectively at the ARC, we need to look at why we can't do that. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Trollip. We have Honorable Kutama, followed by Honorable Madala.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, honorable members. I just have two quick interventions to make. The first is to ask the question, what are the penalties which are imposed in the event farmers contravene the provisions of these the relevant legislations and rules? So let's get what are the penalties, and secondly, do we have records of farmers who are offending these provisions being disciplined? In other words, action being taken. If so, can we get the sense of how many of them? Then it is clear, Chair, that the problems is around auctions. We don't have a capacity to monitor what's happening in our auctions. Now, my mind suggests that we might have a solution to this problem if we consider the unemployed graduates, which can be given a crash course by certified vets. Just like in the health sector, you have doctors on top and you have nurses who are operating with the doctors. Why can't we be innovative in this area and expand the available capacity by training these young people to do the basic monitoring? And where there are problems, of course, they will then have to call upon the vets to intervene. Otherwise, we are not going to get around this problem. It's going to continue, and with these huge negative implications that it has. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kutama. Honorable Madala.
Ngibonga, Chair. Ngibingelele, Chair, Ministers, and Department and honorable members. I think ama-speaker sekhulumile sengikhavile endaweni eningi, kodwa ngizobuza nje umbuzo oyi-one kwi-department ukuthi why i-Western Cape is currently free since 2021, and i-Western Cape yodwa yona inama-strict measures. Why i-department isebenza e-Western Cape ngemithetho ehlukile kunamanye ama-province? Because uyabona ukuthi kwamanye ama-province akunakekiwe, kodwa i-Western Cape, I don't know whether it's because of kunabantu ama-farmers ahlala khona a-control umnotho noma kwenzakalani, but i-Western Cape yona i-treatwa special kunamanye ama-provinces. I don't know i-department isebenzisa miphi imithetho, mhlawumbe engazichazela lapho ukuthi kwenziwa yini ukuthi i-Western Cape yona i-free but amanye ama-provinces are affected. Ngiyabonga.
Chair, I requested to the
I just felt like there were two members speaking. I didn't see who was speaking.
It's the call, Chair.
Oh, okay. Honorable Ndalane, and then there is it. Honorable Ndalane, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I think on the role of the provincial department of agriculture and the role of the department and the geographical spread of the disease, the department, maybe the department should indicate clearly the institutional between the national department and the various provincial departments, as well as the coordination of the proactive measures introduced by the veterinary services. I think the committee, the issue of the FM.
Have we lost Honorable Ndalane, or is that me who can't hear her?
The Chair also can't hear.
Okay. It looks like we've lost her. Ndabezitha, you can come in.
Thank you, Chair, and all members. I think members have taken, the first members who have spoken have taken a lot of questions I wanted just to raise. But in order to stress the issue of the controllability of movement of animals, what I wanted just to point out, Chair, is that, you know, there is that sale of goats and sheep in most of our towns. If you are around Ulundi, you find people with their goats being displayed and sold in an open space, moving from places where we don't know. In Pangeni, same is happening in Tuba. You know, in most of these towns adjacent to the rural areas, we have that movement. I think it is important here, as Troll just pointed out, the controllability of movement of livestock in order to maybe deal with the issue. The other issue that I wanted just to touch on is the issue of enforcement of fencing. You know, in the northern KZN, on Umkanyawute mostly area. You know, previously there were fences there which were used as the controlling measures to stop movement of animals, more especially on that side of Pongolo River towards Mozambique. But all those fences have been sort of cut off or dropped. And one will have a question, because even the contractors that were awarded contracts to raise fences, they raised very short fences in height. They were very short in height, and cattle would jump across. But the department had wasted money in doing so. Lastly, previously, Chair, we used to have the veterinary visiting the dipping tanks regularly, where they could vaccinate livestock, more especially in these communal dipping tanks. if one may ask from the department, why did the department stop doing that? Because it was of a good use at the time, because even all the other animal sicknesses could be sort of prevented before they could spread. That's my take, Chairperson. Thank you for allowing me.
Oh, thank you very much, Ndabezitha. We have the hand of all, Honorable Mahlatsi. Honorable Mahlatsi, you can speak now.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson. Honorable members, members of the department. Now, in any field of compliance, the people must be educated or trained in what they should comply to. So my question then be, have you embarked on any type of training to assist the struggling farmers so that they can also adhere to these regulations? Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members, for the questions. Just to ask the department just one question. DDG and Dogotela, in the past, in your reports, you used to indicate the number of livestock vaccinated during this period of the outbreak, and even before. Is there any reason why you have not indicated this time around? But also, the second issue is the issue around the effectiveness of the vaccines. We are aware, yes, as Honorable Mtudi and Honorable Trollip has raised earlier on, that the ARC has a challenge. I just cannot remember exactly whether the challenge that they have is the issue around the FMD facility. Would it be due to financial challenges, and what is the progress that you know now as a department in relation to that? But lastly, DTG and Dogotela. Maybe you should also indicate to these members here, the honorable members here, the level of effectiveness or the efficacy of these important vaccines for the SAT1, SAT2, and SAT3 stereotypes of the virus, which are actually in circulation in the country as we speak. If you can do that, probably for me, it would be enough. I'll hand back to you, DDG, to be able to respond, and the doctor, and then we'll give the minister at the end.
Thank you very much, honorable members, for the insightful and very helpful questions. And indeed, it is from these questions that we are able to improve our actions, and this we really take this with a good heart, that as one of the additional light onto what could be our blind spots. I will take most of the questions, and those that Dr. Mlisani, please stand guard for those that I might have missed. I tried all of them here. One from, I think, the Honorable Mundwedi, about whether we will be able to regain our status. Yes, the answer is emphatic yes, we will be able to. Hence, we are going to employ these extraordinary steps that we really wouldn't have liked to, but seeing that the outbreak continues and it goes beyond what we have expected, and we got the country to basically to regress, we definitely are going. We will. This the target we are setting ourselves up are achievable, and we will achieve them, because once we control movement of animals, once we control abattoirs, once we control speculators, and education and awareness raised by Honorable Mahlati, we definitely will be able to achieve this. And unfortunately, we may not be able to give an indication of time, but we hope to be able to close these outbreaks by the end of this year and get back to where we were pre-for 2019. Which parts of the country, Dr. Mdisani, if you may, Secretariat, if you may display the map with the slides with the map, but the part of the country, Dr. Mdisani, please note so that we can come back to be specific, which parts of the country within provinces, other than the provinces that we know to be Limpopo, KZN, Mpumalanga, and which parts are prone. But while the Dr. Mdisani will come to the specifics of those areas that are prone and are currently affected, we should simply just maybe understand it as follows: that the areas that are closer to or sharing borders or easier arterial routes to the KZN, the protection zones, and the KZN, Mpumalanga and Limpopo, those become areas that are prone. Provinces like Northwest, if things are done well, we ordinarily shouldn't have the outbreaks. Provinces like Northern Cape, that's why we don't have. Free State, it's because it's in the center of the country, but if all the other provinces, Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and Northern Cape do not have, we shouldn't have it in the Free State. So, but the specific areas that will submit those, Honorable Montoedi, if we do not have them of our hands. Movement control, again, Honorable Montoedi. Also, this links to enforcement, and I think Minister mentioned it, and I know that DG Ramasodi and his counterpart at SAPS are busy planning a meeting, and from what I heard from DG, and I think Minister also mentioned, is that we are going to look into an MOU, Memorandum of Agreement, between the Department of Agriculture and South African Police Service, so that enforcement becomes part of their day-to-day activities. And like Honorable Mahlete, I like what he said, unless people know what to comply with, they would not comply, and they will not be able to comply. So we're going to get there are steps to have the two departments entering into a memorandum of agreement. This will be, amongst other things, mainly it will be about control of stock theft, but also movement control of animals, especially once Minister issues the directive, it will have to be enforced by the South African Police Service. Again, Honorable Mundweli, the fourth question is about the shortage of vets. We are aware, and we should be able to a greater degree control with the current capacity that we have. And this boils down, Honorable Mundweli, to the allocation that the department has. I think, if anything, if we can make a case to Treasury and with assistance of this portfolio committee of ours, if you can at least assist, when the Treasury cuts on the compensation of employees budget across the government, they forget that agriculture cannot be practiced by artificial intelligence. Agriculture still requires boots and men with boots on the ground. You cannot use drones to vaccinate animals. You cannot. So they forget that part, and we always say to them, if you think of more police visibility as a way of controlling crime, we must know that more veterinarians and veterinary officials on the ground would be one way towards preventing diseases outbreaks. So that's one area. But with our current allocation, Honorable Montwedi and members, our projections are that if we're going to rob one to pay the other, we may be able to have animal health technicians allocated to all auctions. Again, calling on the private sector to also play their part. We may be able to subdue the problem, although obviously the long term would be that we have the system, that is the auctioneers and the speculators, knowing what to comply with. But we have the shortage, is true. We are working around this matter to try and see also the placement of the compulsory community service veterinarians. At the moment, we are not placing them at auctions, and it's one matter that I will ask the team to look into how best we can have them also rotating at the auctions to assist because every year we enroll about 100 compulsory community service veterinarians for a period of 12 months. Maybe that's the area that we can look into going forward, because like we said, we are going to employ extraordinary measures and measures that we have never employed before. And then how we're going to implement the individual animal ID. Again, it will have to be enforced. But if you control it at the sale space, at the auction space, everybody would know that their animals have got to be an individual identified. But the good question we're asking is, even at the moment, years later, we still do not have a purpose. People still do not have the brand marks. We're going to ensure that we have, we've procured vehicles and are busy procuring what you call not a mobile office, but the intention this financial year is to have vehicles, the office, moving office, if you like, which would go to especially villages, village to village, to allow animal owners or livestock owners to be able to register. In other words, we're going to try and bring government to people. This is planned as part of us piloting, and in fact, the rolling out the individual animal ID regulations that I mentioned that we are busy with. So why do we not declare? Is it not a disaster? It is a disaster. But some definitions, as you go further of defining a disaster, sometimes we have, because the Act is not implemented by us, but it's the competence of COPTA. We had engagement in the past, and I must admit, we've not followed up on that discussions with regard to declaring it a disaster, and so that we get funding from that side, the disaster funding. Is a matter that I'll take up from this. Like I said, these questions are also brightening our blind spot area. We have engaged them at some point, and there was willingness. The challenge is only that to declare a disaster is a very lengthy process. By the time we're able to declare a disaster, we might have already contained the outbreak. So how to look into how their processes? In fact, their law is just too cumbersome for the disaster to be declared. Members would have noticed even felt fires and locusts. By the time we get funding, or drought, by the time we get funding, the rain, if it's trying to get drought funding, rains would have started raining. Maybe that's a matter that as legislators, members of the committee can take it up with COPTA, because the process is just too long for a disaster to be declared. But it's a matter that we undertake to take up with our counterpart at the National Disaster Management Center and COPTA to see how best this can be further explored. The other questions were from Honorable Trollip. The map, again, the map will be brought when Dr. Mlisana is going to talk to it to explain the dots and take members, Dr. Mlisana, through the map, explaining what's happening, and so for Honorable Trollip to also have a grasp of the question that what we were addressing with the map. Self-regulatory, again, from Honorable Trollip, correct. The laws, the regulations, the speed limit on the road, those are designed to be adhered to. Those are designed to be complied with, not necessarily to be implemented, to be enforced. But in the event where there's poor adherence to the law, then enforcement happens. Self-regulatory is what we support, Honorable Trollip, and that's why one of the key stakeholders that we're going to be meeting with this week is the livestock industry, RMIS, Red Meat Industry Services, which is a representative body of the livestock owners in the main. And in fact, this has proven to work. When we contained the outbreak in the human store, Honorable Trollip will remember, it was a multifaceted stakeholder engagement with the Eastern Cape Farmers Association and everybody else in that area. We worked together under the leadership of the department jointly with that of the Red Meat Industry Services, where we gathered together and we then had them coming forward and assisting. And the self-regulation is a one encouraged practice where members of the industry themselves are self-regulating. It happens a lot in the fruit industry, where you see farmers and knowing that what not to do, then they also police each other, if you like. Movement control, fencing, yes, Honorable Trollip, you are correct. The fences that we used to have pre-1994 are no longer there. And it's a challenge. We actually, for FMD itself, we have taken at some point that we need 2,000 kilometers length of fencing, adequate fencing in order to be able to control the foot and mouth disease and keep it where it's supposed to be, at least the protection zones. But unfortunately, fences get tampered with and get vandalized. Is the challenge that the country faces, but it's a matter that is worth further exploring. And then enforcement of the regulations, Honorable Torib, yes, we agree that there was a question that the intention is to have those that must adhere to the law, to know what is the law, what the law says, what is it that they need to do in order for them to comply with the law itself, and what is the benefits. It's not about complying with the law. Livestock owners need to know what is the benefit for them to adhere to the law, and they'll be able to help get others also to adhere to the law. Ability, Honorable Torib, of ARC producing vaccines. This was a trial which we have done, and we were able to produce at one go, not in a go, but at a cycle, 20,000 doses. And I don't want to put my head on the block because the process is ongoing. I may ask that we submit that in writing. I've already tasked ARC to give us in writing how many doses may we have by when, and going forward, how many doses will we be able on our own through ARC to produce. And I mentioned that we are going to add the capacity to be able to double what we're able to do. We will submit that with your indulgence, honorable members. We'll submit that in writing to the committee once we have the numbers. Honorable Mkutama, the law, this is a 1984 law, 84 law. Most of our laws that were designed at that time had very little penalties. Some of our laws still talk of 200 rand fee, fine, and all of that. The intention with the newly established laws is to go into to have the penalties that serve as the deterrent. But I asked the team to look into it. Our law doesn't really say much. All our laws, even the Plant Pest Act, which was 1984, 1983, same as the Animal Disease Act, they were enacted at the same time. During that time, the emphasis was not on penalties, but it was on self-regulation, if you like. The emphasis was on people knowing what is the law, what needs to be done. So I can, with certainty, say, Honorable Mkudama, all our laws, the old laws, do not really make the penalties that are prescribed in those laws are so very little that they wouldn't serve as a deterrent. I must also mention that the intention again is to replace the Animal Disease Act with the Animal Health Act, which is the 2002 Act, which embraces the current constitution of the country, which embraces the current formation of government from local, provincial, and separate functions of provincial and those from those of the national department. So once we in that law with the regulations, we will be able to at least have penalties that would be sufficient enough to serve as a deterrent. At the moment, our laws, Honorable Mkudama, do not really assist. And you also asked a question about why not employ unemployed graduates. We do have a lot of them, actually, animal health technicians that are unemployed. But the problem is the constraints, the budget constraints, which if members can assist us, we will be able to, we know where we need capacity, but unfortunately, we just do not have funds to absorb them or to appoint them. Honorable Madala, correct. Northern Cape, Western Cape, two things. One is that they are just careful, but they are also assisted, Western Cape in particular, assisted by the geography of the country. But why is this geography not assisting Western KZN? The geography I'm talking about is about one portion is the ocean. So you then have movement from the other side, and you are able to have sort of entry into the province. You cannot enter Western Cape from all other angles. You can only enter it from the other side. But why is that? If that is the case, why is it not KZN? It's because of the proximity of Tuhlwe Mfolozi in the KZN that makes it not to behave like Western Cape is behaving. But of course, we're not taking away good governance that is happening in those provinces of Northern Cape and the Western Cape. Honorable Ndalana, I couldn't get the question, Honorable Chair. If Dr. Mlisan captured it, please do respond to it. The line was bad on my side. And Honorable Kebekulu, consider Kebekulu, control of the movement and the same, of course, those that the livestock that is sold in old age pension payouts and all of those. That shouldn't be a problem if there's awareness and if they've been vaccinated, those that need to be vaccinated, goats and sheep, that this area that we need to get closer to and assist that they do not get in touch with the infected. In other words, so nobody goes to, if those people go to auctions, and auctions that are controlled, and animals that are sold at auctions have been tested to be free from diseases, that practice shouldn't be a problem, because the person who goes to the auction to buy goats and sheep, they would have bought goats and sheep that are negative from diseases. So that shouldn't be a problem. So the problem is at the source, which is the auctions, and that if we control there, we should have this problem addressed and subdued. The issue of fencing, you are correct, Honorable Kebekulu, like Honorable Trolik mentioned, something has got to be done about the fencing. We know now, like I said, for FMD control, we need about 2,000 kilometers of fence, and a good quality fence that will be able to control. Dr. Misan mentioned of the rains that would push as and when the high rainfalls happen, the flooding and related, some fences, the old fences are giving in. But we do really need to revamp the fencing that we have in the country, especially livestock control fencing. Dipping tanks. When we changed from 1994, there are good things that we also did away with. It pains me to say this, dipping tanks, especially in the communal areas, this is one of the good practices that we'll have to find a way of bringing the dipping tanks in. If anything with dipping tanks, you're able to control external parasites, you're able to control diseases, but also you're going to be able to have farmers coming in for us to know how many farmers we have, and at the same time, we're able to have vaccinations if required happening. I think it's a matter that we have not been paying sufficient attention to, because the way with the advent of democracy and everybody else ended up accessing livestock remedies, and they started doing themselves. And with the dwindling capacity in government, and also with the fragmentation in the form of government, provincial and national departments, we just have not followed through this one. It's one method that we should have just perfected and brought it into the current dispensation. It's a matter that really we'll have to explore and see how best. We still do have dipping tanks, by the way, but the management thereof can be improved upon. And then, Honorable Mahlatsi, I think I responded to the question on awareness. We will have to ensure that we ensure that they create awareness so that people know what is it that they need to adhere to. And Honorable Pule, Honorable Chairperson, this specifically this time around, because we wanted to give an overview of that's why we started from the beginning. Hence, we do not have the numbers, but we do have the numbers of those that are vaccinated. But my team will tell me, since the outbreak, since around November, December, we ran out of vaccines. I think to this committee, we must just be honest, blunt, and open. We ran out of vaccines, not because we did not have funds, but because there were just complications, understanding of the situation with we did not have, the department hasn't had a CFO for quite some time. So the acting CFO had no understanding, and we went from pillar to post, and we couldn't get the vaccines on time. Hence, we are not able to give you a good number of animals that we've been we've vaccinated. We just do not. We've run out of vaccine. I must just make that gory details open here and play open ball card with the committee. We have started the process. We hope to have vaccines next week or so, because we have now. Now with the split of the two departments, our departments, the team now understand the agency and the importance of vaccines, and we should be able to get vaccines. Then we'll be able to have data in the form of animals that have been vaccinated. And the efficacy of the vaccines, Honorable Pule, we think they are. So far we are happy with the efficacy. We think the vaccines do work. Otherwise, because this we see from the animals that have been vaccinated, the case in point becomes the human stop area, which was a big outbreak. But after vaccination, we have been able to cap the contain the outbreak. The FMD facility, that's a long-term, Honorable Bule. The long-term is to have, there's funding. The funding is not enough to start. We've got the plans, the designs and everything else, but the funding that we have is not enough to start with the construction of a FMD facility. In the meantime, therefore, we rely on the we call it the mid scale. It's not the bigger scale, but it's a medium scale that we'll be able to produce from ARC while we're still waiting for us to have sufficient fund to roll out or to construct a fit for purpose FMD facility. Thank you very much. Let me, with your indulgence, Honorable Chair, allow Dr. Mudisane to catch on the few that I mentioned. One is about the maps, as Honorable Trolip asked. And secondly, please also talk to from Honorable Kebekula on the FMD, on the dipping tanks, and one matter that I might have forgotten. Honorable Chair, with your indulgence.
Yes, DDG, let's allow the doctor to come in.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I should have indicated at the beginning of the meeting that the Director Animal Health, Dr. Maja, is also on the podium, and Dr. Sonepur, because we took this presentation to be so significant. So we requested them to also attend. If I would ask Secretariat to display the map again so that I can talk to it. But in the meantime, I will address the issue or the question raised by Honorable Kebekulu. DDG has talked to it to a very large extent, but I must also indicate that in particularly KwaZulu-Natal, dipping tanks are still very functional, and they are being utilized as inspection points for the animals. The dipping material KwaZulu-Natal is purchasing is also serving as an incentive for the farmers to bring their animals to the facilities, to the crash pens, so that we are also able to inspect the animals, especially for foot and mouth. We should also remember that particularly in the northwestern part of KwaZulu-Natal, there is not only one disease that we are concerned about. It's not only foot and mouth, but there is also challenges of another disease known as corridor disease. Now, the other issue Honorable Kebekulu raised, Chairperson, and if we are to be honest and inform and give this portfolio committee the truth, we haven't really touched on how this SAP2 was introduced to KwaZulu-Natal. We are speculating as to how it came there, because the virus that is causing all this
recording in progress
is associated with a virus that happened somewhere in the northern part of the country. So we want to believe that maybe it came through goats that Honorable Kebekulu referred to, that are being sold by speculators around Mtuba, as Honorable Member indicated. And but we are not absolutely certain as to how it came there, because it did not make sense that we get virus in Makado or in Limpopo, northern part of Limpopo, and then we end up finding it in KwaZulu-Natal somehow. So definitely the speculators are playing a role in terms of the spread of viruses. And then Honorable, please pardon me, Andile, Honorable Andile did raise issues of whether we have examples, and DDG spoke about the penalties being very low, but the one example that we can provide is the person that caused the outbreak in Limpopo I think it was in 2019. We ended up taking him through the courts, but unfortunately, having seen the magnitude of the allegations against him, he ended up shooting himself. I'm not sure if he's still alive or whether he passed on, but that is the only probably case that we definitely had a definite case to take him to the courts, because he was deliberately buying cattle from the FMD control zones and then going to sell them inside the country. So that is the only case probably that we can cite at this moment. Now going to I think it's Honorable Kebekulu that was asking about the many dots in the northern part of KwaZulu-Natal, the red dots. Oh, it's Honorable Trollip. One of the reasons why we have so many outbreaks there is the fact that we do not have fences in which the animals can be kept, and the animals are actually grazing communally. So animals coming from one village will go and graze in another village. If they are sick, they leave the disease there, and then the process goes on, and that is why there is so many red dots in the northern part of KwaZulu-Natal. So the reasoning that we got is that is trust land, and to a large extent, fences may be prohibited in that area. I don't know how truthful that is, and some of the barriers that we use to control the spread of FMD is fences. We also make use of natural barriers, mountains, and rivers. But the problem with rivers is they can dry up and they can overflood. But there are very little mountains in that northern part of KZN that can actually prevent the movement of cattle from one village to the next, and that is why we have that many. Honorable Trollip wanted us to explain the black dots. On the left-hand side of the map, there is a legend there. We indicated the red discoloration as an FMD infected zone where there are buffaloes, and mainly it's the Kruger National Park, and then a little bit of the park in KwaZulu-Natal, right, just next to Eswatini. And then we also have the yellow discolored area in the map, which is the FMD protection zone. And then the red dots, as indicated in the legend, are the FMD reported cases in KwaZulu-Natal. And then the black dots are actually reported cases that we have resolved, that have been closed So wherever we are seeing the black dots, we have actually reported those cases, and then they have been investigated, they've been handled, and they are no longer in existence, basically. And that is also from Mpumalanga, wherein we also had closed cases. And I think there was an outbreak in Honorable Trolley referred to the East London one, which is in the process of being closed in the Eastern Cape, and then also the one just next to Port Elizabeth there that also are being closed at this moment. I hope that I have covered a majority of the questions that DDG may have left out. But just to also emphasize, Chairperson Pule, that the vaccine that we are using is effective, but the one issue that one should emphasize and to the committee is that vaccines do not necessarily prevent the disease, but they assist us in terms of managing the disease, in terms of the shedding of the virus. So the most important interventions are the quarantines and the movement controls, as we indicated in our interventions. If we get the support, Honorable Montwedi, as DDG has indicated, the intention is to get all these outbreaks under control, and we will start the process of applying for freedom again. The only challenge is that we are still having new cases that are being reported at this moment. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, members, and DDG.
Thank you, Minister. We hand over to you.
DDG, thank you very much, and Doctor, thank you for the responses. Just before we hand over to the minister, I want to check if honorable members would like to have follow-up, so that when the minister closes with his comments, we already follow up. Thank you very much. Honorable Montwedi.
Chair, I listened to the response of both the doctors on the questions that honorable members have actually asked. Now, I just want maybe just one last thing to say, because the resource mobilization seems to be one of the biggest problems that is there in terms of effectively dealing with FMD. Has the department actually reached out to Treasury in order to receive more funds from Treasury? Because the response from Tateserach is like, we'll be stealing from Peter to pay Dineo. But let's leave Peter and Dineo, because my understanding of that would narrowly be looking within coffers of the department. But what is it? What has the department went out to Treasury to plead its case with Treasury, the financial implications that our country not being a free from FMD have, the financial implications that it has on the economy of this country? Have you reached out to Treasury, and what is the response from Treasury, if you have? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Montwedi. Honorable Mututama.
Thanks, Chair. It is really, really disturbing that we don't have updated penalties which could be effective in addressing the problem. So it seemed to me that the department is facilitating these transgressions by these farmers, because we are told that there's an archaic old order legislation which is not effective, which is sufficiently punitive, therefore it's not going to be preventative. So it is really up to the department to assist this committee to move to address this issue. So, Chair, I am going to ask that we be furnished with the updated proposed amendments so that we can see whether the suggested punitive measures actually are going to address this matter. It is clear to me that we are sitting with a problem that we could long address. If farmers are not being punished for transgressions, that is an incentive for them to continue to do what they are doing. So let us see those proposed amendments so that we can see if the matter is being addressed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mututama. DTG, you can come back and respond to the two questions before we hand over to the Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Muntwedi. We have tried through Treasury. We've had meetings with Treasury. I must confirm that it was during the 6th administration. We have not had an opportunity during the current 7th administration to again, seeing that there's now a new DG at Treasury. Maybe if we do, but this is a normal government budgeting process when we do AE and E processes, that we submit what our needs, financial needs. They don't seem to understand that in the past, but we're going to do it again this time around as a split department. As members would remember that we were part of the bigger department. Maybe our voice was just disappeared into the whole situation. But I hope with us now being a very focused department, we should be able to make our plea heard this time around. But all the other years we have, there were points previously, I think 2017, 2018, we went to Treasury. We were allocated some funding additional for biosecurity purposes, some of which we used for FMD control and other disease control. We got some money the previous financial year, which was not enough, which we got very late and we couldn't use. So I think what we need to be doing is to escalate it to minister. That we have not done. So we should be able to escalate to minister to show that much as we understand that the public service salary bill is huge, we cannot afford not to have boots on the ground when it comes to livestock and farming business. So that's one method that we're going to have to. Honorable Muntwedi mentioned correctly the ratio of one extension officer to farmers. We as a country are faring very badly. We agree, Honorable Kutama, that that's why we were upfront. We will be trying in the form of the regulations of the new law, the 2002 law that we have started the process of enacting for it to be commenced with so that it can repeal the current 1984 Act. We will still busy finalizing the regulations, and we will gladly share the regulations and with the honorable members. And then we're going to try with the regulations to try and see if we cannot factor in deterrent penalties, Honorable Kudama, but upfront, and we acknowledge that the current law framework does not really make provisions for a real deterrent as opposed to others in other countries. For instance, you can't even charge somebody spot fine on a discovery of them harboring controlled products which they're not supposed to have. They say you must go to the magistrate and all of that. It just does not assist in law enforcement purposes. But thank you very much. We will definitely share the process once we are at the stage to share. Once we shall have been concluded, once the process shall have been concluded, when we are ready to have the new 2002 Act commenced with by the President. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
DG, thank you. I would like now to hand over to the Minister to close the discussion and the responses by the department.
Well, thanks very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the colleagues for the interaction. Also, thank you to DDG Sarache and Dr. Modasani for their inputs there. I think you can see it is certainly something that we are taking incredibly seriously, given its impact on. I just want to deal with two matters. The first is obviously Honourable Nkatama's question, which obviously has been a concern of mine since becoming minister, and that's why we are currently reviewing all the legislation that relates to the agricultural sector. As I said right from the beginning, some of those acts date back to late 1940s. And I mean, some of the fines are, I think, still in pounds and the like. So we obviously need to make sure that we have a legislative environment that is fit for purpose to handle it. Just in terms of the new Animal Health Act that Mr. Sarache, DDG Sarache referred to, the penalties and offences on there are set out in section 29 of that act, and it says that any person found guilty of an offence under this act is, in the case of a first conviction, liable to a fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years, or to both such fine and imprisonment. And in the case of a second or subsequent conviction, whether the same or any other offence referred to is liable to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 4 years, or to both such fine and such imprisonment. So the sooner we can get the new acts, regulations done and get it commenced, get a commencement date from the President, we obviously then are in far firmer territory. But the new act does take into consideration that. The second issue was the one raised by Honourable Montwedi. Why haven't we declared it a disaster? Well, first of all, if we want to isolate it to a province, that function falls to the provincial executive in each of those cases. At a national level, there are very strict criteria that need to be met before a national disaster is declared. And we've seen that quite clearly in the recent attempts by COGTA to try and declare a national disaster on the food poisoning crisis. And the advice from state attorneys was that it did not meet the requirements. And I think we would struggle here with the same thing. But we also need to be mindful of the fact that what we're discussing today and the measures and implementation that you put in place do have consequences for the industry and the sector as well. And we must remember that while we're dealing with cattle here, foot and mouth, and goats and others, it also affects the wool trade and a variety of other, I think, as Dr. Modasani has already said. And so the last thing you want to do is to write a major scare to your international markets and trading partners that now suddenly there's a national disaster and they shut down all of those sectors, rather than just us dealing and isolating, declaring as we have to WOA as a notifiable disease and informing trading partners when these outbreaks happen. I think it's a far more responsible way to do it, because if we lose suddenly export, it's going to flood the local market, and that's obviously going to drive down prices and loss of market, excess of product, and it's going to have a really negative effect, as we saw previously when the wool was banned from China as a result of foot and mouth outbreaks. Luckily, we have protocols now in place there. But if we declare a national disaster on it, I think even China would be then forced to move away from their compartmentalized approach and say, well, you've declared a national disaster now, so now we're putting a national ban on all of these things. So we do need to be mindful of those. The third and last thing is something we are going to have to grapple with as legislators as well, and that is the constitutional contradictions that make it incredibly complex to navigate, particularly things like veterinary services. Yes, we've got a national shortage of vets. DDG Sarache and his team have been working very hard to remove some of the red tape that makes it difficult for us to deploy people who want to come and work as vets here. We lose a lot of vets to other countries, and that's one of the reasons why we have the community service model here, so that at least if we're spending money on veterinary practitioners and veterinarians, that we do get something back as a country in that regard. However, if one looks at the Constitution, there is an anomaly in that animal health is a functional area of provincial and national competence. But veterinary services are set out very clearly in Schedule 5, Part A, as a provincial legislative competence. So, in fact, the real power around veterinary services actually lies with provinces and not with national. Our powers, if one reads the Constitution, says very clearly the provinces have provincial competence, exclusive provincial legislative competence over veterinary services, excluding the regulation of the profession, which seems to indicate on a reading of it that our job at national is to regulate the profession, but it is up to provinces to provide. Now, obviously, we can't just walk away from veterinary services given the issues that we're discussing today, but this is an issue we are going to have to grapple with in the coming years around how we clarify what the constitutional roles are. Because if we start to do things at national, we could end up with pushback, and there could easily be a challenge for somebody saying, but why are you legislating for this? Why are you making regulations around these things if, in fact, it is an exclusive area of provincial legislative competence? And we are going to have a constitutional issue on our hands that we'd have to deal with. So it is just something to keep at the back of mind, particularly when it comes to veterinary services, as we push forward into the agri space over the next couple of. Chair, thank you very much for that opportunity, and I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for the responses or clarifications of the issues that are raised by members at the end. We appreciate that the department came to brief us on the progress and what is happening on FMD currently, and what are the processes that we are engaging on in terms of making sure that we prevent and also mitigate, now that there are these 3 provinces that have the outbreak. On the issues that members have raised that are not happy about, and in the promise by DDG Sarache and Doctor to be able to write down some of these issues and clarify to the portfolio committee, may I then request that please do that and send the responses on time, so that members would have an idea of what is happening in relation to the questions that they have raised. And I think, Minister, you have assisted in terms of just clarifying on other issues, for an example, the declaration of the disaster and the issues around the legislation, just to be able to have an idea of the impact that it could have on us if we were to go towards that route. That instead of helping us on this impact of FMD, or to resolve the issues that we have currently here in the country, it may be somehow be a negative effect on us when the other countries look at us. Thank you once more, Minister. We have come to the end of the part that the department was supposed to make a presentation. So we would like to say thank you very much once more, Minister, and for making sure that every time when you are requested by the portfolio committee, you avail yourself and the department to come and brief us. We do not take it lightly. We do appreciate it. We will then release you now and your team from the department until next time. And I just want to indicate, Minister, and to the department that we had invited yourselves, I think last week or so, I think 2 weeks ago, on the 22nd, where we discussed the plans of the strategic plans of the department. In terms of the parliamentary update and the program, it looks like we have to start afresh. So we will at some point again request the department to come back, and especially because of the budget processes and the fact that there were also 2 of your entities, Minister, that had not appeared because you had sent them back to go and finalize some areas. So we want to believe that when we call you again for the presentations, all these entities would be ready, including the department. On those words, I would like to say thank you once more, and Minister, you're released.
Thank you very, very much, Chairperson, and thanks to the committee. Look forward to the next engagement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members, please stay put while the department moves out of the platform. If members would like to catch a glass of water or a cup of tea, please, in the next minute, we can do so, so that we can then continue with the next item on the agenda. Albi, you'll indicate to me when we are supposed to continue.
Okay, Chair.
After we have released the departmental team.
Yes, I think we can continue now, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, honorable members, colleagues, we now have to go to the next item, which is the consideration and adoption of the oversight report to PPECB and ARC campus and the outstanding minutes of the 1st and the 22nd of April. So we will start with the consideration of the reports. Who's uploading it, Albertina? Can we have the report in front of us, please? Okay, I want to believe, honorable members, you did receive the report and you were able to go through it. Who's making a presentation, Albertina? Is that Knox or who?
Knox, Chair.
Okay, Knox, go ahead. Knox, are you with us?
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members.
Good morning
This
to you.
is the draft report of the oversight visit to the PPECB and the ARC Stellenbosch campus in March 2025. So members can raise issues if they have any issues on page 1. Page 1 is the introduction. And the objectives of the oversight. And the members that attended the oversight. Next page, please. Section 2 is the summary of the engagements that the committee delegation had with the entities. The first day on the 25th March were engagements with the PPECB, which started at the FPT terminal at Cape Town Harbour. Next page. The next one is the summary of the visit to the Cape Fruit Coolers at Montague Gardens. And lastly, the oversight with the PPCB concluded with the briefing at their offices. And this is the summary of the issues that members raised during the engagements with the PPECB. Next page. Second day, the 26th of March, the committee delegation visited the ARC Stellenbosch campus, which started with the briefing at Nidford Bay. Can you go up, please? Next page. Next page. That's just the summary of the briefing at the ARC. Next page, please. Page 10. They were also, after the presentation, the interactive exhibition of the programs that the campus that was visited, which is the fruit and wine, was busy with. And the site visits included the microbiology lab and the agri-food analytics laboratory. And then the last one was the experimental wine cellar at Nidford Bay. The next section is a summary of issues from the engagements with the ARC during the briefing and the site visits. Next page. This is the committee observations, Chair. I'm not sure if, can you go up a bit, Albie? No? Oh, maybe down. Thank you. This is the committee observations in respect of the visit to the PPECB. I'm not sure if members have any comments.
Yeah, if you can just leave that page there and let the members go through, and if they have issues they can raise. Just keep it there a bit. Honorable members, you will indicate if you have an issue to raise. You can pass now that page.
The next one is the observations from the ARC. Can we please still go up, Albi? The previous one was the PPC.
So fast.
Started the ARC.
Go back.
Go up. Back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, you can continue. And go to the questions. Go up, Alpi. We want to see the recommendations. Yeah. You can continue. Scroll up.
ARC.
Yeah, I'm fine, Chair, especially with 4.9 there.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Mtwedi. Honorable members, there is your report. I want to believe that Honorable Mtwedi is proposing that we adopt the report. Any other comment? If no comment, any seconder to Honorable Mtwedi?
I second, Chairperson.
Honorable Dalani second. Thank you very much, Knox. The report is duly adopted. We can now go to the minutes of the two previous meetings. I think it's the 1st and the 22nd. Where is my agenda so that I can remember the dates? Yeah. Yes, it's the 1st and the 20th. We're starting with the 1st. Okay. 1st of April. Just show members the attendance, the register. Okay, continue. Okay. Honorable members, there are your minutes. I believe that you had them before. That's why I didn't make them stop a bit for you to go through them. May I hear your view and your voice? Those who were in attendance, let's go back. Honorable Smith and Honorable Okamp, Honorable Ndalane and Honorable Davids, Honorable Mtwedi and Inkosi Cebekulu. May I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Chair, Kostobekulu, I move that minutes be adopted.
Nyabonga, Ndabezitha. Ndabezitha is moved. Any seconder? Honorable Davids.
Good morning, Chair. I second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The minutes of the 1st of April are duly adopted. Can we go to the second set of the minutes, this 22nd? Just go to the attendance and then stop a little bit before you move. Okay. Let's continue. Oh. Thank you very much, Albi. Honorable members, there you are. This is the second set of minutes that you still remember very well. The last meeting that we've had with the Auditor General and the department. May I hear a mover?
Ndalane.
Okay, I didn't hear.
I'll second Honorable Ndalane.
Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Trolip. Ndalane has moved, Honorable Trolip has seconded, and the minutes are duly adopted. Colleagues, thank you very much for your attendance to the meeting, for availing yourself every time. I just have one issue that I think we have to share with each other here. Let me just check the letter here. We have received a letter from, I'm just going to the letter, yeah. Okay, so given the fact that we've had the meeting of the 22nd, which we were considering the departmental strategic plans, we have since then received an indication from the from Parliament that we may have to start afresh. And I hope that you have seen. I'm just gonna read the letter. Do you have it, Alpi, so that you can screen it? If you don't have, I'm just gonna go through it, colleagues, quickly because it's short. It says the Money Bills and Related Matters Act 2009 requires members of the cabinet to table the updated strategic and annual plans of their departments, public entities or institutions once Parliament has adopted the fiscal framework every year. This is so that Parliament can consider the budget votes as part of the appropriation bill. Parliament adopted the fiscal framework on the 2nd of April 2025. Members of Cabinet were thus required to submit the relevant plans by the close of business on the 4th of April 2025. Upon tabling, these plans were duly referred to the respective committees for consideration and report. The budget has been withdrawn and Parliament now intends to consider the fiscal framework on the 11th of June 2025. Given the expected adjustments in the expenditure, it will be necessary for members of Cabinet to submit revised strategic and annual plans for the financial year. Parliament has requested that, subject to the adoption of the fiscal framework, the adjusted plans be tabled by the close of business on the 13th of June 2025. So it means then we will have ourselves as a portfolio committee try and adjust the program that we were supposed to finalize the last time. So we're going to do that and then bring it back to the committee. So I thought I must share with you what I've received for processes so that we are also in the know. I don't know whether you have any announcements besides, so that we can then close the meeting, besides the program that I've shared with the honorable members here.
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues. I think we have come to the end of the meeting for today. Just want to say thank you very much once more for always availing yourself so that we can deal with issues that were responsible for, that the constituencies have sent us to come and do as members of Parliament. I really do appreciate your attendance at all times. The meeting has come to the end. We will see each other in the near future. Administration will advise us as to when next our meeting and deal with a number of issues that have now had to be pushed back because the last week we had to feature the strategic plans. We now have programs that we have pushed back. We'll try and see how we feature them properly again in the program. Colleagues, thank you very much once more. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Have a seat. Bye.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Molweni, Ntosi. Ndifuna ukustopisha le nto, ndingastop le recording.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Hi, Ntosi. Hi, colleagues.
Guys, Ray, phone yami itshona emanzini, so ndisayifaka erayisini.
Hayibo. Ubusenzani emanzini?